Welcome to the Aboriginal channel. This will be episode 5 to the Bible, Weaponized. And in this episode, we're going to be learning a little about how Moses, the prophet of God, and how he experienced a burning bush on the mountain. And the whole experience of talking with God correlates back to American Indian culture and spirituality. It says when Moses approached the burning bush on Mount Sinai, he was suddenly confronted by God himself. So we're going to go look at a reference to what a bush means to American Indians. So I'm going to read right here at what'scookinginamerica.net, where in 1847 it says Henderson Llewellyn, an Iowa nurseryman who grew trees and grew apple trees and fruit trees, traveled the Oregon Trail to Oregon with 4 wagons, his wife, and 8 children. 3 yoke of oxen were required to pull the lead wagon, in which the approximately 700 one-year-old grafted fruit trees. During most of the trip, the family traveled alone or with small companies, as its slow pace irritated those traveling with them. Eliza Llewellyn, one of the daughters, related that a Christian Indian told her father that the nursery saved the lives of the family when they camped near a large band of Indians. He said that the Indians believed that the Great Spirit lived in trees. They thought that he must be under the special care of the Great Spirit, so they did not harm him. To correlate that somewhat, we can go look at the first page of the Bible. So on the second day, it says that God made the firmament and divided the waters from which were under the firmament from the waters which were above it. So basically, back in those times, they must have believed that water was in outer space. That's how we got rain or something. That's the only logical conclusion I can come up with as far as the water is concerned. But what we're looking at is the firmament. It says, and God called the firmament heaven. Then when you look over here, it says he made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that has life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So heaven is anywhere between the surface of the ground and outer space, or the outer limits of space. So when it said the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So in reality, it would seem that God created heaven on the earth. But basically, I correlate that to when the guy said the Indians believed that the Great Spirit lived in the trees. Now we know what the bush represents. Let's go over and look at what the fire represents. Right here on warpathstopeacepipes.com, it says that the meaning of fire symbol, fire played an important part in the traditions of Native Americans and was present in all ceremonies and rituals. Fire acts as a messenger and is a gift from the Great Spirit. So the burning bush, it symbolizes where God lives, and then the fire acts as a messenger, which God, in the example with Moses, was giving Moses a message that he was going to be leading the Israelites out of Egypt and into Canaan. In most Native American or American Indian culture, they have what is called vision quests. So right here at Britannica.com, the Encyclopedia Britannica, it says Vision Quest, Native American religion. Vision Quest, supernatural experience in which an individual seeks to interact with a guardian spirit, usually an anthropomorphized animal, to obtain advice or protection. Vision quests were most typically found among the native peoples of North and South America. The specific technique for attaining visions varied from tribe to tribe, as did the age at which the first quest was to be undertaken, its length and intensity, and the expected form of the guardian spirits present or sign. Pause. So we have a vision quest ritual in American Indian culture where one can expect to experience a guardian spirit in a particular form or sign, which correlates to the burning bush of their prophet Moses. It goes on to say that some groups, notably in South America, limited vision quests and guardian spirits to shamans, religious mysterious personages with powers of healing and psychic transformation. Says the quest itself typically involved going to an isolated location and engaging in prayer while foregoing food and drink for a period of up to several days. Some cultures augmented fasting and prayer with hallucinogens. In some traditions, the participant would watch for an animal that behaved in a significant or unusual way. In others, the participant discovered an object, often a stone, that resembled some animal. Now, what did Moses come back down off that mountain with? The Ten Commandments written in stone, right? Now, this particular portion right here reminds me of the prophet Jesus, who I believe fasted for 40 days and 40 nights and hallucinated. Says the English word visions and its singular form occurs 86 times in the Old Testament of the King James Bible and 17 times in the New Testament. And it says that according to the Bible, one of the most common ways God uses to communicate his will to humans is through visions. So at this point, we're going to skip back to the back of the book where Revelation says that in chapter 13, verse 1, the dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns. So in the book of Revelations, when God is passing his judgment on the earth, there was a mighty beast that came out of the ocean with 7 heads. On those heads were 10 crowns and 10 horns. Now in the Western Hemisphere, are pretty much in the whole world, the people wearing crowns and horns on their head were Indians in the Western Hemisphere. More specifically, the Indians that were the warrior class of Indians wore crowns and horns. So I looked up some things that correlate to Indians having horns, and right here to the right, you see an old tobacco ad with a so-called Indian, the king of the Powhatans, with horns on his head. Then here I found an ad where it says, unearthed giant with horns, petrified body found by Tennessee miners, is 6 feet 4 inches long. Basically, they said they found in Scott County, buried in the earth and petrified, a giant 6 feet 4 inches tall. So I guess a giant was 6 feet 4 inches tall back then. On either side of its head are 2 horns, each about 4 inches in length. So that was a body they found basically in a mound, an Indian with some animal horns on its head. Right here, up here in this image, you see what's in a museum that looks like basically a crown of feathers with some antlers, some deer antlers up there, some horns. Then right down here is some wall art from Tennessee, and as you look a little closely, you see what looks like a person standing there with 2 horns coming out of its head and a feather crown on top. And I pulled out a piece from the book, The History of Alabama, and incidentally that of Georgia and Mississippi from the earliest period by Albert J. Pickett, where it says, in sight of the fortress, which was garrisoned by a large number of savages whose bodies were painted in stripes of white, black, and red, while their faces were frightfully blackened. Red circles surrounded their eyes. These, with the headdresses of feathers and horns, gave them a fantastic and ferocious appearance. And this was in the 1500s, 5 years or so after the first German language Bible was released or published in 1534, and then 70 years or so before the King James Version Bible was created. They were wearing headdresses of feathers and horns on their head throughout the Western Hemisphere. Now, the object of placing the crowns and horns in a negative light in the last book of the Bible, where God is judging the world, was to make the Indian of the Western Hemisphere neglect and reject their own culture. Through the history books, which has all been a lie, so therefore, if it's a lie, then what's the truth? If it's a lie, then what's the truth?